friends, it's Christy. Welcome to day 4 of my 2018 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be making a card using Mama Elephant's Little Snowman Agenda. So there are a ton of little snowmen in this stamp set. I chose 10 of them to stamp out. I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink and some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock, which is what I always use for stamping and coloring, although any Copic friendly cardstock will do. For my snowmen's bodies, I'll be using BG10 and BG11, and I'm starting with that BG11 and laying in a shadow down one side of their bodies. So kind of depending on which direction they're facing or if their head is a little bit tilted to one side or another, I'm going to shadow on that particular direction. So I'm just doing a quick line all the way down on their sides and then a little bit underneath their heads to have some more definition there as well. Once I finish up all 10 of these guys, I'm going to bring in the BG10 and I'm just going to soften up the edge of that BG11 a little bit. Adding this aqua shade just helps the snowmen look extra white, and it also gives them that frigid, snowy appearance. And this was actually so quick and easy to do that I ended up stamping out a second sheet of these guys and making 2 cards at once. I am only going to show the coloring of one on camera because it was exactly the same, but yeah, this went real quick and easy because there wasn't a ton of coloring to do and the images that were there were really small. So now I'm grabbing my colorless blender and just softening up the edge of the BG10 and helping it fade into the white areas. Then I'll bring in YR04 and quickly color in their tiny carrot noses. I'll use the R20 to add some rosy cheeks to each of the snowmen. This is definitely not necessary, but I just thought it added something a little bit extra and also gives you a chance to use another pop of color since they are predominantly white. For the 3 top hats, I'm going to use C3, C5, and C7. I typically like to use warm grays for living things like animals and cool grays for inanimate objects like hats. So this works perfect for them. So I use the C7 for the shadowed area, and now I'm coming in with the C5 as my midtone, and I'll fill in all the rest with the C3 as my highlight. And then I did decide to use these same tones for one of the gifts that this little snowman is holding. So I just shaded them from the right to the left. For my green combination, I'm using G24 and G28. And I thought that my little images were small enough that I could get away with 2 shades. And for some of them I can, but I will end up having to add in a 3rd color for some images. But first I'm just starting with my G28 and laying in all my shadows on anything that I want to be green. So I'm coloring in all of the holly leaves. I'm also doing the wreath that one snowman is holding. I did a couple of their scarves. I'm going to do one of the gifts that this little guy is holding, and also the little beanie hat on this first snowman on the top row. Then I'm going to blend that out with the G24, and here's where I realized that I was going to definitely need a 3rd shade. But before I get to that, I'm just going to finish up with my midtone on all of the images, and I'll color in the holly berries and the gift solid with that G24. And then I decided to add in the G20, which is 2 marker shades down from the G24, but it just really adds a lightness to this combination that I thought would work well. So I'm going to use that to do all the rest of the highlights for my greens. For almost all the rest of my accessories, I'm going to be using my favorite red combo, which is R29, R39, and R59. I'm starting with my R59 and laying in my shadows, and I'm going to do all of the holly berries, any of the ribbons, I'm doing the Santa hat, and then this other little guy on the bottom, his little wool hat. I'm doing his scarf to match. I'm going to do all the ribbons on the gifts. I'm also going to do the bottom gift and the heart on the snowman, and both of the little birds. I'm going to make cardinals as well. Then I'm going to come in with my R39 and pull that R59 out a bit. Even though these areas are super small and you could probably get away with 2 shades on a lot of them, I just love the way this combination works together. And then once you add in that R29, which is so bright, it's just like the perfect festive Christmas red. So I'm going to fill in anything that remains with that R29. And by the way, I just did a quick count, and there are actually 20 different snowmen included in this stamp set. So I ended up only using half of them. And I did end up using the same 10 on the second card because it was just real quick and easy to stamp the same sheet again, especially with the Misty. But you could certainly mix and match and make a ton of Christmas cards with this one set. So I'm almost done with my coloring. I just needed to add a little bit of shading to the white areas, and I didn't want to use the aqua since I'd already used that on the snowman. So instead I'm using the C1, and then I also added in a little bit of the C3. I'm doing some dot detail on the flap of the hat and on the white band of the Santa hat, just to add a little bit of texture and fluffiness, and then I'm going to blend that out with the C1. And now I'll trim these out with the matching dies. The pattern papers that I'm using on today's card are from the Echo Park Celebrate Christmas collection. So I've cut out one piece with the Christmas trees that's going to be just the size to fit behind this MFT horizontal collage cover-up. I've die cut that out of some black cardstock and added thin strips of foam tape to the back. And now I'm going to pop that right over top of my pattern paper. Then I'm going to bring in my card base and add my other piece of pattern paper to the background. It's this gorgeous red, white, and black plaid. So I'm going to adhere that down flat to the card with some liquid glue. And then I will grab my focal panel and add some glue to the back of that as well, and then line that up in the center. I'll bring in my images, and I've added some foam tape to the back of each of those as well. So I'm just going to begin adhering those down, starting in the bottom right corner, and I'm going to kind of stagger them around in their little squares. I don't want each one to be dead center. I would rather have it just a little bit to the left or the right, or occasionally in the center, but I just want them to not all be the same. So I'm trying to do a little bit different from the one that's on the right or left or above or below, just kind of offsetting them a little bit. And what that does is just make it a little bit more visually interesting. Since it's asymmetrical, the eye is going to wander and take in each individual image separately rather than seeing them all lined up and centered as one whole. It's also going to make the entire card seem a bit more animated, since it appears that each little snowman is kind of living and breathing and moving around in his space. It's like the world of Frosty the Snowman, where all the snowmen have come to life. For my sentiment, I'm taking the center insert from that collage die cut, and I'm popping that into my Misty. I'm going to treat that with my EK Success powder tool, and then stamp my sentiment using Versamark ink. This is just a clear sticky ink that works great for heat embossing. I'm going to pick that up with a pair of tweezers and dip that into some white embossing powder. And that sentiment is from the Mama Elephant Scripty Christmas stamp set. I'm going to bring my heat tool and heat that powder up until it's shiny and melted. While I have my Misty out, I'm going to stamp on the inside of my card. I'm using my Memento Tuxedo Black ink once again to stamp out the Warm Holiday Hugs sentiment as well as the snowmen holding coffee. I've added some foam tape to the back of my embossed sentiment, so I'm just going to line that up and pop it right back where it goes in the center. And then to finish off the card, I'm going to add some sparkling clear sequins. I'm doing that using some Ranger Multimedia Matte Glue, and I'm just dabbing the glue where I want my sequins to go first. I find that's the easiest way to adhere them. Then I'm going to use my pick-me-up sticks and just pick up those little sequins with the putty end and then pop those down into place with the stick end that comes out of the back. So I'm using a mixture of 4 and 6 millimeter sequins, and I'm just kind of adding them here and there. There's no really rhyme or reason, just wherever I thought that they made sense. Then I'm bringing in 3 shades of stickles. I've got the Christmas red, the crystal, and the lime green. And I'm going to fill in the centers of my sequins. So I'll do a couple with red, a couple with the green, and a couple with the crystal color, which is kind of an iridescent clear. And I'm just making sure that whichever stickles I use is not next to the same color. So I'm kind of spreading the color throughout the card. So I think on this one I had 3 red and 2 green and 2 white. So that just adds a little spot of glitter that really looks pretty when it catches the light. Just a little something extra, especially since it's a holiday card. And now I'll bring in the second version. I just kind of reversed the color scheme. So I've got a green plaid and the red snowflake background behind the snowmen. So that is going to complete day 4 of my 2018 holiday card series. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd love for you to leave me a comment down below telling me what your favorite Christmas movie was as a child. Frosty was definitely one of mine. Rudolph is another. I'd love to hear what yours are. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.